In today's episode, can't you just take the subway to your destination? Horrible boss blocks my promotion and other job prospects, so I go Liam Neeson on his ass. Best revenge I've ever had. I was fired for inadvertently stumbling on my boss's malfeasance. I used his obsession with golf and watches to get him fired. So let's get started. Can't you just take the subway to your destination? Hello everyone. I'm so glad I finally have a story for this sub after being a lurker for such a long time. So to set the stage, I live in Istanbul, and us Turks are known for our bad city planning, but Istanbul is extra infamous for it. It's regular for us natives of the city to endure complaints about how bad the traffic is, how awfully structured the roads are, and how long it takes to get to literally anywhere yada yada from our friends who came from other parts of Anatolia to work or study here. I just want to get the point across for foreigners about how bad Istanbul traffic and road structure is. If you have a car, it is legit normal to have a 2-hour commute home at the very least, during rush hour. Anyway, so at my work they provide a service bus, because our building is in the outskirts of Istanbul where they haven't connected a lot of public transportation means yet. This is also a common occurrence for us corporate slave folks of Istanbul. Big companies like these are usually located away from the central parts of the city, and people who live close by take the same service bus. And the bus is pretty crowded, about 20 people who all live in close by towns to each other. Like I said, I want you to understand how bad the city planning is. To get to these central parts of the city from our building in the outskirts would take no longer than 30 minutes, but traveling between the towns and dropping everyone off is the rest of the 130 hours. So a Karen joined our bus the other day, and she lived in Taksim apparently, which is a very famous town, and is literally connected to every bus, minibus, subway etc. imaginable. Even you foreigners might have heard of it. She is the only one out of 20 people who lives there. So the bus driver asks her if he can drop her off at a public transportation station that connects to Taksim, which would literally be any station in the entire city. But she refuses, and also complains about the bus driver all the way to the higher-ups of the company. And the bus driver gets scolded and disciplined, and was told to drop her off at the exact location she wanted to be dropped off at. Cue malicious compliance. Next day the bus driver replans the route keeping Taksim in mind. She is right about in the middle of the drop-off order. And, I kid you not, it legit takes just an extra 2 hours in traffic just to reach to Taksim. This is without including dropping off other people or reaching the city center, mind you. And of course, once you set the route as it is, since it's impossible to get out of traffic, she can't tell the bus driver she changed her mind and to go somewhere else. She can't get off the bus too, she has to wait with everyone else, or she might get lynched at work the next day if she hops off at this point. Tired workers are even more tired now, and also pissed because they didn't want to suffer in the hell that is Istanbul traffic any more than they already had to. Bus driver insists on dropping her right in front of her doorstep. She finally gets off the bus and everyone is giving her a stink eye, because while she did get off, the rest are gonna have to wait in more traffic to get out of Taksim now. All in all, she wasted at least 3 hours out of everyone's time including hers, probably more out of people who were going to be dropped off after her. She now asks to be dropped off at a minibus station at somebody else's drop-off stop. Never complained about it ever again too. Horrible boss blocks my promotion and other job prospects, so I go Liam Neeson on his ass. Best revenge I've ever had. Dutch, Flemish and French are my first and second languages, so please try and look past any grammar or vocabulary mistakes. This is a bit of a long story, but I really wanted to sketch an image of what kind of a person this boss really was, so you would understand why I sunk so low as to seek my revenge in such a brutal way. I was desperate, and he had it coming. I stumbled upon the revenge stories here on Reddit about 2 weeks ago, and it dawned on me. I have an excellent revenge story myself. Why not share it with you guys? This happened a few years ago, and because I recently left the company, I feel it's safe to share this story here. Metal Dude, then 35M, was working in a major wholesale company in Belgium. I was second in command at a large branch of this company. The branch manager, then 40M, was a complete ******. Let's call him Stalin from now on. He also responds well to Antichrist or Satan, but let's keep it at Stalin. Other characters in this story are my girlfriend, then 27F, Stalin's wife Cinderella, then 30+F, the big boss of the entire company Big Boss, then 60+M, and one of the heads of a department at our branch, then 28F. Let's call her Naive Girl. I was working for this company for quite a while at this point in time. I always got along with my direct superiors, and was now second in command, well on my way to become branch manager myself one day. But then out of the blue my old manager got promoted to headquarters, and was replaced by a new manager, introducing Stalin. The guy was a few years older than me and introduced himself to the team as someone who gets things done, and that we would grow into the most successful branch of the company under his wings. He also didn't like the word can't, claiming to be deaf to that word. He was a winner and only surrounds himself with other winners. Roll eyes. Everyone immediately knew we had a character on our hands. From week one it was clear to everyone that Stalin didn't know the first thing about the company and what we were selling, and he did not know anything about leading a team and working with people. He always knew everything better than others, and had the annoying tendency to let other people do most of his work. So yeah. As second in command I suddenly had a lot on my plate. I'm not gonna bore you guys with the details, but my full-time job just became 2 full-time jobs, because I had to do most of Stalin's work too. As in here you go, and never expect a thank you or good job. So Stalin was a terrible boss. Surely things couldn't get any worse than this? Now could they? Spoiler alert, but yes they could. One day I was working, and I got a telephone call. The person on the other side of the line introduced himself as an important manager of our biggest competitor. For such an important manager his French was really bad, so I already figured something was fishy. And why would a competitor call me and introduce himself as being an important person? Turns out this manager was offering me a job at their company if I was willing to share any company secrets of my current employer and maybe try and steal some customers away to the competitor's company. I didn't buy into this absurd conversation, but I remained friendly and respectfully declined his offer. 1 hour later I get called into Stalin's office. He then confronted me with the phone call and told me he was testing me to see if I was loyal to the company and to him. He ended this baffling conversation with the words, "And I will continue to test you from time to time in the future." WTH? The guy prank called me himself, to test my loyalty? While I was drowning in work because I had to do most of his work Oswell. And douche over here was spending his newly required free time by doing ***T like this? Who does this? This is the stuff you see in bad comedies, not in real life. Things got even worse in the weeks to come. Stalin began to do less and less of his work. There were times when I came into his office to ask for some help, only to find him reading the newspaper or even playing online poker. He didn't even try to hide it. After all, why should he? He was so superior, remember? When we didn't hit our mark and the results were not as good as anticipated, he would round everybody up and yell at us. He was expecting results from now on, and he wouldn't hesitate to fire people if they didn't have what it took, all the while without doing anything himself. To make things worse, he fired some people who were easily fired, new workers without a long-term contract, to set an example, and he didn't replace them to lower the costs. So now everybody was working 40+ hours on a 35-hour contract, just to keep the branch up and running. Well, almost everybody. Naive Girl, the head of a small, yet important department, stopped working at noon every single Friday. And Stalin himself sure didn't do 40+ hours. Nah. Every Tuesday he was gone by 2 p.m., his weekly Thai massage and relaxing spa. Every Thursday he'd come in later and later. Turns out Wednesday evening was soccer training. He was the coach of a team in the lowest amateur division, so after training he was busy drinking beer like there was no tomorrow. On top of this, every Friday afternoon he was gone Oswell. He told us that he always went to headquarters in Brussels then. Meetings with the board and the big boss. I recognize bullcrap when I see it. My former managers never had to do this. Also very mysterious, but he's gone every Friday, just like Naive Girl. You already know where I'm heading with this, but that's for later. Some juicy stuff coming up. Stalin also got a lot of pleasure from calling certain people into his office and yelling at them in person, threatening them with their job if they didn't start working harder and more. He especially seemed to target the youngest and newest employees, and if possible the females. I don't recall him ever treating more mature male coworkers like this. But we as a team made things work, and we hit our target a few months in a row. It helped that a local competitor went out of business, of course, but still, we did very well compared to the other branches in Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. So at the New Year's reception, a company tradition, all the major branch managers and second managers are there. Stalin got called on stage, where the big boss, the head of the entire company, handed him over an award, Manager of the Year. Instead of thanking his employees, this sack of turds started thanking the big boss for the faith he had given him, thanked his pregnant wife, and then he started complimenting himself. He was a good manager, with a nose for good business, and he knows how to get the best out of people, blah blah blah. I nearly vomited. It was disgusting to watch. And then the applause he received. This was his moment, and he wanted everybody to know. The next day the trophy he received, a cheap piece of metal, was on an especially designed piece of furniture in the middle of his office. Honestly, Stalin reminded me a bit of Steve Carell of The Office at this point. But the evil version with an even bigger ego. A few weeks later, I was working late, again, and by sheer luck I glanced over at the security camera, and I was in shock. I witnessed Stalin kissing with one of our heads of a department, more or less a third person in command, on the parking lot. Naive Girl and Stalin. She was a bit of an odd girl. A pretty girl, but I always had the feeling she didn't really have all of her marbles in place. She actually went to the same high school and university as my girlfriend, so the two know each other without being friends. Small world, this will be important later. So Naive Girl was dating Stalin? I thought she was smarter than this. And wait a minute. Didn't Stalin thank his wife during that terrible speech at New Year? His pregnant wife? Oh, what an asterisk. He's cheating on his pregnant wife. Just when I thought this guy couldn't get any worse? Because I knew he was the worst of the worst. To show off his power to anyone, and especially me who he couldn't control or threaten in a face-to-face conversation, he had this annoying habit of controlling everyone's vacation days like a Roman emperor who's controlling the faith of the fallen gladiators. In his first year as a manager I requested a vacation in October, somewhere in April, and he denied me that week, only to grant me the leave of absence 2 weeks before I was supposed to go on holiday. I was planning on going to Greece with my girlfriend and her family, but because I didn't get my holiday approved in time, my girlfriend's family decided to postpone and go another time. My girlfriend and her father didn't apply for a vacation because of this. Stalin didn't just screw me over, he screwed my in-laws and girlfriend over as well. He refused to give me that holiday, only to grant it to me afterwards to show me he's the boss. And it costs me my trip to Athens. He truly was a major douchebag. The guy's ego had gotten so large it deserved its own national flag by this point. I swear to God, if it got any bigger, astronauts would easily spot it from space, just like the Chinese wall. I hated that prick. The next year came, and because I witnessed him doing this to other employees and myself, I figured I needed a plan. I proceeded in requesting to have my holiday approved, and surprise, Stalin denied me my vacation again. He claimed he needed me at work that month because of an inventory, which is done by other people, not myself. But this time I had a plan. He needed me because I did my job, and on top of that, I did most of his job as well. Everything he didn't like about his job, basically everything with numbers, accountancy, paperwork, etc., I had to do it. He couldn't afford to lose me. So I decided to try one of his own tricks on him. I called in and pretended I was the manager of another company. I told Stalin that I had received the resume of _metaldude_ and was informing to know what kind of employee he is. I can do different accents and voices, so this was a piece of cake for me. The plan was for Stalin to know that I was looking for another job, and that he could lose me, forcing him to do his job himself. Scary sh*t, so the plan was for him to give me my days off, just to please me. Stalin believed I was another manager because he put on his important person voice and started to thrash talk me as an employee. I was unreliable, always late for work, sloppy, forgot things that were important, etc. You get the picture. It wasn't pretty. In order to prevent me from getting another job, Captain A-hole over here decided to talk bad about me to potential new employers. What a D*K. What a horrible waste of oxygen this guy was. But at least it gave him a scare, because the next day my request for a holiday got magically approved. He never confronted me with me applying for jobs elsewhere though. Mission accomplished. I got to plan that trip to Greece with my girlfriend and her family. They are Greek Belgians. I was finally going. Fun fact, but no, I wasn't going. After I booked and paid for everything, he came back on his word. 1 month before I was supposed to go on a holiday, he called me into his office and told me he had to go on an important business meeting in Prague, Czech Republic, and because one of us two had to be at work, he had no choice but to cancel my holiday. I was speechless for a moment, but started thinking really quick, so I demanded that he put this on paper because my girlfriend would not be amused. He laughed, agreed, and sent me an email confirming my holiday got cancelled because he had to go to Prague. Little did he know I was building a case against him, and I needed this on paper. The moron actually believed it was just to show my girlfriend I had no choice but to cancel our plans. Now, if this were true, then yeah, I would understand. But I knew he was lying. I just knew it, but I couldn't prove a thing. I had enough though. I really had enough. Working for this man was impossible, and he was standing in my way. I had heard through the grapevine that he had blocked my internal promotions. See, I know a lot of people at headquarters, and someone had told me how he branded me as incompetent for seeking a better paid, higher up job within the company. He wanted me where I was at that moment, as a second in command who would do all of his work. This meant he was blocking my promotions and was preventing me from getting a nice job elsewhere. I heard firsthand how he down-talked my abilities. Sure, I have flaws as everybody else, but I'm not the screw-up he painted me to be to potential employers. I needed to find a new job, but Mr. Stalin over here was blocking every good opportunity. As long as he was in charge of the branch, I was basically his serf. Bound to the company and bound to him as my lord. I needed a way out, but didn't know how to do it. But then Lady Luck walked into the room. The week I was supposed to go to Greece, Stalin went on his business trip. Or so he told me. My girlfriend went to Athens with her family and saw something on Facebook. She called me and told me to open my WhatsApp. Girlfriend had sent me some screenshots from her Facebook. Turns out naive girl was posting pictures of her with Stalin, in Switzerland. He went skiing with her. There was no business trip. That absolute disgrace of a human being had cancelled my holiday for the second year in a row, so he could cheat on his wife with a younger woman. Ow, how I hated this dude. He did not expect my girlfriend and myself to see these pictures though. Little did he know that girlfriend and naive girl knew each other and were Facebook friends. No contact in real life whatsoever, so Stalin really had no idea. It gave me the fuel I needed. I had proof he was cheating on his wife. Not just that. You see. Now here's where things got really interesting. Only 2 weeks before this I was networking at a company after drink, and I started talking to the manager of another branch, a direct equal to Stalin. I already had a few drinks, so I was a bit loose and therefore did little to hide the fact that I disliked Stalin, and what do you know? That other manager didn't like Stalin either. Turned out Stalin only got his job because his wife is the daughter of the owner, Big Boss. This explained everything. The guy was so unqualified for the job. He only got the job because daddy-in-law threw him a bone. So not only was he cheating on his wife, he was cheating on the Big Boss's pregnant daughter. Oh snap! Can I get a hallelujah? The universe was smiling upon me at last. And now I had proof. Pictures of him kissing another woman. Time to set things in motion. So my girlfriend was in Athens without me and Stalin was in Switzerland getting laid. I was stuck at work and things were difficult because we were understaffed. I decided to send an email to all branch managers, plus the big boss who never responds, asking for extra help, and that I couldn't ask my manager because he is on a business trip and asked not to be disturbed. I knew he told the big boss he was on a holiday because he had to hand in a request to get that holiday. So him being on a business trip made no sense and I knew that. I wanted Big Boss to know that Stalin told us a lie. I didn't have a direct line to the big boss. Heck, I only talked to the guy 2 to 3 times during my time at the company. So I needed to draw his attention in a sneaky way. This email caught his attention all right. The big boss immediately replied to me, telling me Stalin is on a holiday, and that he will inform him that the request for backup was granted. I made subtle contact with the big boss. Now I had an email conversation going. Me, no, he told us he's on a business trip, that's why he cancelled my holiday. Big boss, he's visiting an old school friend in Switzerland. I will get you some extra workforce myself. Me, here's the email in which he cancelled my holiday. I forward Big Boss the email Stalin sent me at my request. He clearly wrote he had to go on a business trip. Big Boss, I will talk to him about this. That's odd. Maybe he wasn't paying attention. I will call him this afternoon and sort this out. Thank you and keep up the good work. The day after, Stalin calls me from Switzerland. Big Boss did call him, and this took Stalin by surprise. And Stalin doesn't like surprises. Little did he know this was just the beginning. I was prepared and decided to record the phone call. He went berserk on the phone, a little paraphrasing, "You are nothing. I can squash you like a fly. If I decide to take your holiday, there's nothing you can do about it. You gonna sit there like a little girl, and take it all like the B***** that you are." Yes, he was very female friendly. The big boss doesn't need to know I told you I was on a business trip. I don't owe anyone an explanation. You leave that senile old fart out of this, you hear me? At that moment a light shined down on me from the heavens. I got him. It was just one sentence, but it was pure gold. Senile old fart. I bet rich daddy-in-law will have a field day with this one. I wanted more proof. I was like frickin' Sherlock or Columbo at this point. If he was having an affair, maybe those pictures wouldn't do. He could claim those were old pictures or something. I dunno. Didn't want to take the chance he'd talk his way out of it. So I needed more proof. Where was he going every Friday afternoon? Surely he was meeting naive girl somewhere. I needed to know where. Then a light bulb started glowing above my head. His emails. He once gave me his password to the company email address, so I could access his work emails. Because this way I could do more of his work, you know? His password was the name of his favorite Belgian soccer team, Anderlecht. It's actually the biggest rival of my team. You can't make this stuff up. The guy was my antagonist in everything he touched. Would this password work on his personal email address as well? Surely he can't be that big of an idiot? But he was off course. Mr. Idiot had the exact same password for everything. I found out he was on Tinder. I found out he was emailing with a chick from the Philippines, he must have met her there, and I found all the emails he sent with naive girl. Apparently it started way in the beginning, so they'd been seeing each other even before he got his Cinderella pregnant. Gotcha mother asterisk. As the Mission Impossible tune started playing I began to unfold my plan. Stalin was now back from his little trip and acted like nothing happened. I could still access his email, so I checked every few days or so. On Wednesday I struck gold again. He received an email confirmation of a visit to the spa wellness for 2 people at 3 p.m. and a confirmation of a visit to a certain restaurant at 6 p.m., also for 2 people. Both were for Friday. I wonder who he was going with. Checkmate mofo. Gotcha again. The timing was right for the next and final phase of my execution plan. I had printed out the pictures from Naive Girl's Facebook. Stalin kissing with Naive Girl, them skiing, them having drinks together, and Stalin in front of the Swiss flag in front of a cabin. Classic stuff. He was such a grateful model. I had put these pictures in an envelope and put a little note in it. It said something along the lines of, "Hey, we don't know each other, but I felt you needed to see this, and know that your husband is having an affair. He did not go to Switzerland to visit some old school friend. No, he went there with this chick. Her name is Naive Girl. This is her address, this is her email, and this is her Facebook and phone number. She isn't a bad person. I don't even know if she knows he is married and has a kid." He told his boss he was in Switzerland to visit an old friend, and told his coworkers he was on a business trip in Prague. Both are lies. He is having an affair with a girl from his work. I have hacked your husband's email and found some interesting stuff. You can read it for yourself. His password is Anderlecht. Please take your time in reading these emails and check the last mails he received. They're meeting up at Name Restaurant at 6 p.m. today. Before this, they are going to the spa resort at 3 p.m. I am sorry to throw this in your face. I know it's a lot, but you deserve better than this scum. G, signed, Anonymous. I had some reservations as to include this poor girl, Cinderella, into my revenge. I was about to destroy her world too, and she didn't deserve this. But my girlfriend convinced me. She said, if it were you, and you were cheating on my pregnant ass, I'd want to know sooner rather than later. She needs to know, metal dude. Obviously my girlfriend didn't call me metal dude. That'd be weird, but you understand, right? That particular Friday I called work to say I'd be a little later that day because I had car problems, first time I was late in years. Instead I drove to Stalin's and Cinderella's place and dropped the envelope in their front door mailbox and rang the doorbell, after which I quickly went away. I knew Cinderella was home alone, her car was in the driveway, and she was still home with a newborn. Stalin was at work. I then went to work where I sent an email to the big boss. I told the big boss that Stalin was skipping work a lot, and that it was too much for my team and myself to keep dealing with this. I told the big boss that I was going to resign because of this. I ended the email with the following. And I included a voice recording you'd find very interesting to hear for yourself. It's Stalin calling me, right after you called him in Switzerland. It only took like 15 minutes and my phone rang. It was Big Boss himself. Calling me on my company phone. OSH*T. Even better than I hoped for. Big Boss told me he was amazed by how Stalin talked to me, and about him, and thanked me for sending this to him. He told me he would talk to Stalin about this and asked me to wait with my resignation for the time being. He would straighten things out. Me, he'll just deny everything, and as soon as you end the phone conversation with him he'll project his anger on me. Big Boss, no, I'm visiting my daughter and grandson this afternoon, and I'll swing by at work before that. It's not that far apart. Ding ding ding. Did he just say he was visiting his daughter? The daughter I just nuked to smithereens with the news of her husband cheating on her? The same husband Big Boss wants to talk with before visiting his daughter? Maybe I should play the national lottery this afternoon because everything felt like it was going my way. I decided to keep my mouth shut about the cheating, well duh, but also about him being absent this afternoon. I was originally planning on complaining to the Big Boss that Stalin was never in on a Friday afternoon, luring the Big Boss to that restaurant at 6 p.m., but this was even better. No, let the Big Boss come in and see for himself that Stalin just wasn't there. 12 a.m., Naive Girl said bye-bye to everyone and off she went. 12:15 a.m. Stalin shut down his computer and left the office Oswell, without saying goodbye. Of course, emperors don't talk to the peasants and plebs. 16 a.m., the Big Boss entered the building. It was showtime, beachies. Big Boss was clearly and visibly upset with something. Could it be his daughter showed him some naughty pictures already? Did he visit her first? He asked me where Stalin was, and I swear to God, Leonardo DiCaprio should hand me over his Oscar immediately. I acted all surprised and said, "Oh, you were coming here to talk to Stalin?" I must have misunderstood at the phone. Why didn't you talk to him in Brussels? At headquarters? He's there every Friday, no? The big boss looked surprised. I deserve that Oscar, I really do, and went like, "What do you mean?" Me, he always leaves at noon, every Friday, because he's meeting you every week in Brussels. Or at least, that's what he told us. I could see the dominoes inside Big Boss's head start falling as Big Boss's face went blank. He took his phone and called someone. He took a few steps back, but I overheard some parts of the conversation. I think he was calling his daughter because he said, "No, he's not here." Apparently he went somewhere. I can only imagine his daughter telling him about the emails and the information I gave her about the restaurant and spa resort. Looked like she hadn't told him that part yet. Big Boss, oh really? I know that place. Okay. I'll come over. Big Boss then thanked me and said he'd take care of this, and ended it with his classical "keep up the good work" as he left the room. I was full of questions that entire weekend. What had happened? All I know is that when I came in at work that Monday morning, Stalin was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was some guy from headquarters telling us Stalin won't be in that week, and that he'd be replacing him temporarily. Stalin never came back though, and after a month or so they appointed a new manager. Years later, I was working in Brussels at headquarters. I got that promotion. And I befriended a member of the board. During a business meal we started talking, and when I mentioned I used to be second in command under Stalin, the guy started laughing. "That guy," he said, "man, let me tell you a story." The board member then filled in all the blanks I had for all of these years, not knowing I was the one who talked Stalin into the gallows off course. Apparently Stalin really did get the manager job, because of his relationship with the Big Boss being son-in-law. He was the golden kid and Big Boss had big plans for Stalin. He was supposed to take over the company when Big Boss retired. But it turned out he was cheating on Big Boss's daughter with a few women, and was also stealing time from the company by not being at work when he was supposed to be there. All stuff I already knew off course, but hey, I was still a A-list Hollywood actor, so I acted all surprised and sh*t. Apparently Big Boss and his daughter Cinderella walked in on him when he was in a restaurant with one of his mistresses. Ow, how I wanted to be a fly on the wall when that went down. I'd give my left testicle to see this whole event unfolding before my eyes. He then told me Cinderella divorced him, threw him out of the house, and Big Boss didn't fire him. They were afraid of legal implications, but instead demoted him to a meaningless position in the southern part of Belgium where people speak French. Stalin did not speak French. He only spoke West Flemish, which is like the hardest Dutch dialect known to man, so most native Dutch speakers, especially those from the Netherlands, didn't understand him either. Seriously, love people from West Flanders, but they speak a different language than other mortals out there. Klingon is easier to understand. Needless to say, Stalin was lost over there. He did not fit in, had no friends, no connections, no more power, and on top of it all, he did not understand the language. He quit the company after a few months and was now working in a low-wage job. As for Naive Girl, she walked away unharmed. We never talked about it though. She met someone else and even married the dude a year later. Girlfriend and myself were invited to the wedding. Big Boss retired a few years later and sold the company to a foreigner. He didn't have anyone to succeed him, but the millions he received did miracles to soften that. His daughter apparently went back to the guy she dated before Stalin. They were still a couple the last time I heard. I do not feel bad for Stalin. Not one bit. I'm not the kind of person who enjoys other people's misery, nor am I a sociopath, but this guy really boiled my kidneys, if you know what I mean. I never met such a narcissist, self-centered **Lou in my entire life, and he wanted to destroy my life and the lives of many other people. As far as I'm concerned, I stopped him before he could do any more damage and saved my own career in the process. His wife is better off without him, the company is better off without him, my colleagues are better off without him, and I am better off without him. I was fired for inadvertently stumbling on my boss's malfeasance. I used his obsession with golf and watches to get him fired. This was in the last throes of the analog mid-90s. Fax machines, FedEx, dial-up computing and voicemail were the most common business tools. I was a young regional sales manager for a major branded consumer product. I covered the grocery class of trade in 11 western states. My division worked out of Chicago, and I had a home office on the West Coast. I had made my reputation by typically making my quota and keeping costs within budget. I would get reassigned to struggling markets, and more often than not, I would usually make my sales number. Nothing too fancy, I just figured where the best opportunities were and concentrated on them. In those days, we had something called Market Development Funds (MDF), or as we called it, making days fun. In the time before such things were deemed illegal, it was money we could literally use for almost anything you could imagine: wining and dining, sending buyers to the Super Bowl, taking them on market research trips. I once took 6 honchos for a weekend of fishing in Mexico, as long as you had the receipts and your boss knew, except in cases where they specifically asked not to know. We were free to spend money as we saw fit. This was old school Mad Men style slush funds. All tax deductible. Typically the MDF money was 2% of your total annual gross sales, and was use it or lose it, meaning it had to be spent because it wouldn't roll over. I always had some left over. As a team player, I would let my boss, Sasquatch, know, so he could use it. No big deal. Towards the end of the year, my weekly FedEx pack from the company started including sign-offs for payments to a supplier I had never heard of before. What was weird is they were for a demo company that wasn't one of my regional suppliers. If you have ever been offered a sample or a coupon in a grocery store, that was a demo company. I called the broker/agent in that market and learned that they had never used the company or even heard of them. I finally figured out that they were from Sasquatch and that he had thrown them in with my other sign-offs. I called him and asked if he knew what they were. He said that they should be assigned to my MDF and not to worry about them. This was a little unusual because demos would normally be taken out of other monies or came down from marketing. Whatever, I signed off on them. Hung out to dry. About 3 months later, I was called into HQ for a meeting where I was told I was being transferred to a market that I had never worked before and would be required to relocate. At the time, my wife was pregnant, read her ProRevenge story in my feed, and we just started an extensive remodel on our newly purchased house. The company had some relocation benefits, but it was just too hectic to pull up roots and move to the southeast. I declined the offer and was told that I could look for another job within the company or receive a severance package. I wound up taking the severance. The truth comes to light. Several months later, one of my ex-coworkers told me that my region had been taken over by one of Sasquatch's past work associates who he managed to get hired in my spot, and that the region was tanking badly. Nothing made sense. Why was I terminated and then replaced by someone who lived in another city and who couldn't do the job? I started to think in my naivety that I may have put a target on my back. After some research and digging, which was much harder before the internet, I learned that the demo company billing the MDF was based in my ex-boss's previous city and was just a P.O. box, a telephone, and a DBA registered by the new person in my job. I found out it was his girlfriend/mistress. I was livid. Like most people, I tend to plan revenge in my head, but never really go through with it. Most of the time, it's a coping mechanism and not very useful in moving on past being wronged. But this was so egregious, so uncalled for, and so disruptive to my life that I felt I had to get even. My plan evolved to take this guy down. Whatever the time it took. Whatever the cost in lives or money. I was going to get this mofo. I may have been able to rat him out to the company, but they might have dismissed my complaint as coming from a disgruntled ex-employee with an axe to grind. The hook. I decided that I was going to approach Guy as a phony recruiter, not just a guy collecting resumes, but as a retained corporate headhunter, someone paid to onboard people for big jobs. I had spent a year early in my career working for a super exclusive headhunting firm, and knew exactly what transpired in the process. My subterfuge required international telexes, phony letterhead, faked English accents, and overseas friends to do my bidding. Sasquatch was obsessed with expensive watches and golf. He played regularly and watched pro golf both on TV and live. He would incessantly chatter on about both subjects. To bait him, I arranged for him to be approached for an executive position with a major Swiss watch company for a position tied to pro golf and other swanky sports, sponsorships, and included a shopping list of benefits and perquisites. The job would require hobnobbing with major sports organizers, flying around the world, first class, natch, and basically spending money. It was a job he could only dream of. The setup. In the slow and methodical long con, I strung him along until the time was right to close with an offer. The only catch was that he had to report to Switzerland for final offer and onboarding. I deliberately scheduled it for the week of the old jobs division meetings and reporting. They were mandatory and impossible to miss without raising red flags. Sasquatch was worried that his absence would be impossible to cover, especially if he was out of the country. The headhunting firm said they could move the appointment up a few days, so that he would be able to attend his meeting, but that he would need to purchase an unrestricted business class seat and make his own hotel reservations. Save your receipts, and the watch company will reimburse you, he was told. Sasquatch showed up to his swanky hotel suite, using his own credit card for the $$ room, and promptly received a note from the watch company that his appointment had to be rescheduled for the following Monday, because of a major corporate crisis. Sasquatch called the phony recruiter in a panic about missing the corporate meetings back in the States. It was agreed that he would call in sick, and that whatever happened with the old job, he was heading to much greener fairways. He. Enjoy your weekend in Europe. By Monday you'll be in your dream job. The sting. While Sasquatch was cooling his jets in Europe, I nonchalantly called his boss, the president of the division, and casually asked for a reference on Sasquatch's work ethic and dates of employment. You'd be surprised how often this mistake happens. The president, to his credit, didn't tip his hand or act very surprised by the call, but like a good corporate wonk, he referred me to human resources. I let it slip that he was in Europe finalizing his new job, and that he'd already given the company notice. My bad. Bloody aftermath and how the Revenge overstepped its original mission. Eventually, I was able to put together the aftermath from old coworkers and other people in the trade, who did not know I was the Revenge Ninja. When Monday came and went, Sasquatch must have been apoplectic. This is to be assumed since we had cut all communications to let him twist in the wind, because we received at least 20 calls to the exchange and multiple faxes. Sasquatch hung around the hotel for a day or two, and then finally decided to leave for home. I assume at some point he may have contacted the watch company, but I never confirmed it. When he finally got home, he found his office had been packed up and left with his wife. An HR person met him off-site to give him his severance and retrieve the car and other company property. I heard his wife left him sometime later and his mistress was fired for theft. I figure he spent at least $10,000 on travel and hotel. Epilogue. I wish I could say I tipped my hand and told Sasquatch that I was the author of his demise, but it really served no purpose, and in theory may have exposed me to some retribution of my own. By my moral lodestar, I got even with a thief who was content to steal and take my livelihood. That was plenty. Sicilian Alzheimer's, never forget an offense. Very humbled that this blew up. I have been accused of having a cold heart on those who have slighted me. I'm not too proud to admit there were some revenge plans that backfired or were never implemented. I'm an argumentative SOB and comfortable enough in my own skin to take a few random jabs and some healthy skepticism from Redditors. I defend myself in the hope that someone will learn that there are indeed times when revenge is appropriate. My real-world experiences came before the internet, doxing, ghosting, texting, social media, Google, and all the other stuff that makes people sure everything is a scam. I've had some fun and memorable experiences in my life. The story of Sasquatch is true and less complicated than you'd think. The key to any confidence scam, literally the word con comes from confidence, is the confidence the mark puts on the con artist. Sasquatch was a Swiss watch fanboy. He wore expensive models and knew everything there was to know about rare watches and their complications. Additionally, he lived for golf, played golf, watched golf, anything golf. So when my real recruiter friend from the UK called him and said my Swiss client is confidentially putting together a hospitality/ambassador position in the US, we are looking for someone who knows golf and other sports, knows watches, and is comfortable with high-level interactions at a six-figure salary with a huge travel budget, car and entertainment allowances, free or low-cost access to the best watches in the world, and a budget to set up a small team of minions. How hard do you think it would be for him to recruit Sasquatch? A few faxes from a third party, a phone call or two, and some cobbled together letterhead, and the guy was hooked. If Sasquatch harbored any concerns that it was fake, he certainly would have refused to lay out travel expenses. I myself have fronted travel money while interviewing, so it really wasn't much of a reach. I'll say that revenge isn't always pleasant, and sometimes I think it feels a little sickening. These are the consequences of this type of action. As I age, I agree to a certain extent that living well is the best revenge, but only after someone pays for what they did. Thanks for watching.